This is the FreeWell Variable Magnetic ND Filter System, something they're just launching on Indiegogo. There's a link in the description if you're interested in checking it out. But basically, the idea of this is that you can magnetically swap several different variable NDs, several circular polarized filters, and a mist filter if you want, or a mist variable ND. And basically by swapping, combining, flipping them around, you get a whole lot of options built into one somewhat small, compact package. And by the way, FreeWell did send this to me for free, but they're not paying for this review. They don't get input on this video. They don't get to see it before it's launched or anything like that. So this is my opinion about these. I like FreeWell products quite a bit. I buy quite a bit of them, and they send me some as well. First, let's go over what's in and what you get with this. First, there's the case, which is a pretty nice filter case. Actually, is quite a bit of pouches inside, different things you can put in there. And then you get the system. Now, I went for a 72mm filter thread size, but most of my lenses are 67, so I am using an adapter ring here. But yeah, you get whatever you need to. If they don't sell your particular size, you'll just have to get an adapter ring, and not a big deal. So then there's also this, the new magnetic lens cap, which is pretty cool. It's glass in the center, and FreeWell, the FreeWell word is clear. After that is a 6 to 9 variable ND, depending on how it's installed. Now, if you flip it around, and I'll show you how to do that in a minute, it's also an ND32 circular polarized filter, which can be very useful for photography or working with things around water like this. After that is the 2 to 5 stop variable ND. And if you flip that around, it's a circular polarized filter as well, but not a ND32 or ND16 or anything. It's just circular polarized if you flip it around. And then we come to the base, which is the part of this system that makes everything work. So this base is magnetic and will work with FreeWell's other magnetic filters. So if you have them, you can use them with this, provided you have the right sizes for this particular system. And this is the VND base. Now, the VND base is one stop of light reduction by itself, but then when you combine it with the 2 to 5 stop or the 6 to 9 stop, you get whatever those particular stops are of reduction. And the way it works is pretty simple. You line it up, the FreeWell symbol and the FreeWell symbol, and it snaps into place. And then on top of that, you place whichever variable ND filter you want to place. But there is a way you need to put these together correctly in order for them to work right and for the magnets and everything to work properly. And the way FreeWell has done this is they have put an A and an A. So if you line up the A's, it will snap in, and then you have a 2 to 5 stop, and that gives you the most amount of magnetic. Now, if you don't line it up correctly, it will sort of stick, but it won't be very strong. So if you're in doubt, turn it. You should hear it kind of click in, and then you should have your variable ND with hard stops as you're turning it. And that's the way it works with all of the filters, all of the things you put on this on the outside. Now, if you're just putting something on the inside, you can line it up with this here, just like this. So you see the FreeWell symbol, it lines up, kind of snaps into place, nice and flush, and it's ready to go. Depending on which way these are facing, they do different things. So if you have the VND base or the VND mist base in here, that's part of what you need to use to make the variable ND filter work, because variable NDs are essentially two polarizing filters working against each other to limit the amount of light coming in. And then the way to tell what you're using is whatever the writing is on the outside or facing away from your camera that you can see is what you're using at the moment. So this is the 2 to 5 stop. You can see here as I hold this in my hand and turn it, it gets darker, and you go the other way, it gets lighter. It does have hard stops, turns easily, feels nice. And the same thing with the 6 to 9 stop filter. But FreeWell didn't stop there. They also made it, because this is a circular polarized filter, that if you take the VND base out of the magnetic ring and you put this on the other way where it says CPL, circular polarized, on the outside, same thing, it locks in nice and tight, and then as you turn it, it will polarize the light that's coming into the camera. That's really useful for dealing with reflections off of water especially, or if you want more saturation or maybe a little less saturation in blues and greens specifically, because it deals with how the sunlight is reflected off of those materials. So as you can see here, it makes a huge difference on the surface of the water, how much shine or reflection is on water. It works the same with glass. If you're trying to film through glass, a circular polarized filter will help cut the reflections off the glass a tremendous amount. And the nice thing is you have it all built into this single filter system here that you can just use anyway. Now in use, these filters work really well. They work much like my other VND filters. The hard stops works great. I have always noticed that especially on wider lenses, like 16, 17 millimeters, if you go to the extreme of the filter, right before it gets to the dreaded X pattern, if you don't have hard stops, is you will notice maybe some vignetting on the outsides. It's no different with any other filters I've used. The only way to really overcome that is to get a much larger filter than what your lens requires in order to keep the image that you're getting into your lens just in the center of the filter, which is the furthest away from the edges, which is where the X pattern starts, and it always hits right at the very hard stop edges of the variable ND filter. But all in all, performance-wise, these filters perform very, very well. Now there is one more filter that is a very specific use case scenario. I don't really have a use for it that much, but I could see certain areas where you might, and that's the mist filter and the variable mist ND filter. And just like the variable ND, you have a base that you swap out with this, and the same thing, you line up the FreeWell symbol, it snaps right into place just like that. And so now you have the same one stop of light, but also with a fairly heavy halation effect or blooming of the highlights. Now that can be useful in certain situations. This feels pretty heavy for me and for what I use. I like to stay about 1/8 or so if I'm going to use one, but I could see where this could be useful in certain scenarios, especially if you want to set a certain mood with what you're filming. Depending on if you're doing short films or something like that, if you want to set a mood like you're filming memories of olden days or days gone by, this would certainly give an effect and set your footage apart from anything else you filmed. It does really soften the footage. And so whether or not that's something you would use is really up to you. For me, I wouldn't use it that much. It's just a little too strong. But, you know, depending on the use case scenario, it might be something that you find very useful. Overall, I found the image quality of these to be really good. Not a lot of color shift, not a lot of image degradation. I can say that word, and really produces some nice stuff. It's built with FreeWell's coatings, which are really scratch resistant and handle a lot of abuse, I can say, because I've had other filters of theirs for years now that have taken daily abuse, and they're still standing up and holding up great. No scratches, no chips, no dings or anything like that. One thing to note though is that if you're using the circular polarized side instead of the ND filter side, the variable ND filter side, is because this is magnetic, it won't stick on the proper way. It'll push away. So you have to flip the lens cap around if you want to put the lens cap on the circular polarizer side. It still works as a lens cap, it's just not as secure and as tight because it doesn't have the lip ring around the front side. Now there are a few places that I wouldn't recommend using this, and that's if you're filming stuff from moving vehicles in high vibration settings, anything that's going to be jolting and jarring your camera a lot, because these are magnets and they only have a certain amount of strength. But for things like street photography or things where you're not really pushing your physical limits a little bit by, you know, jumping in and out of an airplane or flying at 100 miles an hour and filming out a window, these filters would work really well, and essentially you only have to carry these with you to be able to use a lot of different functionality and a lot of different options when it comes to your filter system. Now, if you want to see other accessories that I think are essential for people who do what I do, which is explore, create by yourself, solo creator, then click or tap right here. I put together a short playlist. As always, if you have specific questions, ask me in the comments below or join my live stream Wednesday nights, 4 p.m. Alaska time, 8 p.m. Eastern. I will see you again soon in the next video. Cheers.